Hey everyone, welcome back to the channel. Today I'm going to show you how you can make rolling tech house. We're going to break down my latest single, Real OG. As always, the project file is included in the description. And since not everyone is on Logic, I'm also going to include some samples and MIDI files from it for all the Ableton and FL Studio users or whichever DAW you're using. Alright, so before I start explaining anything, let's have a listen to the first and the last drop to see what this song sounds like.
Real OG, you can ride with me. We gon' straight from the club to the after party.
Alright, so this is what the song sounds like. Let's just start with the most important elements here, and that's probably the bass line. Rolling tech house has a rolling bass line. So this is the kick and the bass combined. It's not that difficult. It's basically playing 16th notes, but you have to keep in mind that you need to have some sort of movement in here. So what I did was play around with the cutoff. This way we're adding some movement to this bass line. What you can also do is go for a little bit of swing in here. And Logic has a really nice 16th swing. Let me show you what that sounds like. So that gives you a different type of groove, but which is also really nice. But I just went for the straightforward, stiff groove like this. I layered this bass line in 3 different layers. We got our mid bass, and I took away some of the sub frequencies. I do this because then I can have a shorter sidechain on this one. Then I have my sub bass, and this sub bass, as you can see, has a way longer sidechain because the sub bass is clashing with the tail of the kick. And then we have one wider bass, just to fill up a little bit of the side information in the stereo spectrum. And together they sound like this. Alright, so this is probably the bass. So this is the foundation for a rolling tech house song. But obviously this is a little bit boring. So we're going... So that's a pretty solid foundation for the rolling tech house song. It usually starts with a rolling bass line with the 16th notes. Now we need something on top. And for that I found a preset from Evo Sounds. And it's called atmos, and I made this melody, and I didn't want to change the rhythm too much because I want to keep everything rolling. I did try to use the 16th notes, but instead sometimes I use an 8th note, as you can see over here. This melody is obviously what keeps it interesting. This is our main theme, so let's have a listen. Now there is some processing on here, mostly it's filters and some saturation. Now the saturation is off on this one because, and I'm going to show you that in a second, I used the same preset but tweaked it to have some variation for the first drop. So this is the same preset with a whole lot of tweaks in the preset. I'll show it to you. This is the preset now. And I do have some saturation on this one because it's a smaller plucky sound. It needed some saturation to pop out of the mix a little bit more. I'll show you without any of the plugins. Width. Now one trick that I always like to use when I want a lead to sound a little bit wider is to use little micro shift. But instead of putting it on the sound itself, I put it on a send return channel, and I can actually dial it in. Basically, it's like adding a parallel layer on top of it, which makes it sound a little bit wider and fuller without actually harming or changing the original sound. So yeah, I like to do that. This layer sounds like this. And then together. So that's it for the leads and for the bass. Now let's have a look at our drums. As you can see, for the drums, I used quite a lot of loops. And that's because I actually used some claps and hi-hats that I used in songs before. It sounds like this. So this is my clap. And then later on I have a second layer. Now my hats. So I just consolidated this from another song that I made before and I used it again. But I layered it. Then some percussion. And then I have this loop on top. I think later on I added an extra hi-hat. Sometimes do that, and because the first couple of hi-hats were super short and maybe I need a little bit more tail. So yeah, that's basically it for the drums. Nothing crazy. There's a right loop coming in later. Because the bass line is already rolling, we don't need anything crazy for the drums. Now, if you want to go more for that Mac Styler odd mob style, then obviously you want to use different drums compared to this one. But if you want that more odd mob Mac Styler style, then just change up the drums, keep that rolling bass line, maybe with a little bit longer sidechain, and basically you're getting the same result. All right, now there are some little leads in here that I also copied over from another song that I made before. I can't remember where I got them from. It might be from Tech House Market, but I used this in another song before and just consolidated it, bounced it to audio, and just used it in this song. Then we have some effects in here. Nothing crazy, just some uplifters, downlifters, and a snare roll. And then obviously we have the vocal now. I want to talk about this vocal for a little bit. I think every producer that's watching this has struggles with finding good original vocals. And when they do finally find something good, it has probably been used by a lot of other producers. Now there's a couple of options. You can pay for a vocalist to sing or write you an original vocal, but that usually costs you quite a lot of money. So what I try to do is buy sample packs that are not on Splice or Loop Cloud and try to find something that hasn't been used that often. But when I finally do find it, I like to do some creative stuff with it and just cut it up instead of just repeating it the whole time. So this is the vocal, the original one.
If you a real OG, you could ride with me. We going straight from the club to the after party.
Now what I could have done is just repeat this over and over and over again, but I try to cut it up and get creative to have some variation. So this is what that sounds like.
If you a real OG.
So there you go, there's some variation. Then we also have this part.
If you a real OG, you could.
Another variation. I think this is very important. Then if you find a good sample, just get creative with it and don't just use the same thing over and over and over again. Alright, so for the last drop I have some more variation. I brought in the classic acid sound. And as you can hear, there's a lot of movement in this sound as well, but that's all in the preset itself. And then obviously I have my signature bass shots and stuff in here. Alright, let's have one more listen to that last drop. Again, if you want the project, link is in the description. You can get it from my Patreon. If you want to support me, become a subscriber. I would really appreciate that. I hope you learned something, and I'll see you guys in the next one.
If you a real OG, you could ride with me. We going straight